13. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned over Israel 42 years. Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at Michmash and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. The rest of the men he sent back to their homes. Jonathan attacked the Philistines' outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. Then Saul had a trumpet blown throughout the land and said, "Let the herds hear." So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked the Philistines' outpost, and now Israel has become a stench to the Philistines. And the people were summoned to join Saul at Gibeah. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel, with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand at the seashore. They went up and encamped at Michmash, east of the Bethmid. When the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard pressed, they hid in a cave and in thickets among the rocks, and in the pits and cisterns. Some herbs even crossed the cisterns. Some herbs even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilead, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilead. And Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered a burnt offering. Just as they finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilead, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." "You acted foolishly," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command of the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out the man after his own heart and appointed him leader of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's commands." Then Samuel left Gilgal and went up to Gibeon in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him. The number was 600. Saul and his son Jonathan and the men with them were staying in Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Mizpah. Raiding parties went out from the Philistines' camp in 3 decades. One turned toward Orpah in the Sea and the third town of the boundary land, overlooking the valley of Gibeon, facing the desert. Now a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, "Otherwise the Hebrews would mark sword or spears." So all Israel went down to Philistines to have their plowshares, matchlocks, axes, and sixties sharpened. The price was 2/3 and the shirks of the sparing power shells, and a matchlocks, and 1/3 of the shirks for sharpening forks and axes, and the repointing gauze. So on the days of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. Now the decrement of the Philistines had gone out past at Michmash. 14. One day, Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man bearing his armor, "Come, let's go over to the Philistines' outpost on their other side." But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of the Gibeon under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men, among whom was Abias, who was wearing an ephod. He was the son of Ichabod's brother, Achbed's son of Pilesis, the son of Eli, the son of priest in Shihon. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. On each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross the reach of the Philistine outpost was a cliff, one who had called Boaz and the other Senes. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, and the other to the south toward Geba. Jonathan said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised fellows. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf." Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Do all that you have in mind. His armor bearer said, Go ahead, I am with your heart and soul. Jonathan said, Come then, we will cross over toward the men and let them see us. If they say to you, Wait there until we come to you, we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, Come up to us, we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands. So both of them showed themselves to the Philistines' outpost. Look, said the Philistines, the Hebrews were crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, Come up to us, and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, Climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hands of Israel. Jonathan climbed up, using his hands and feet, with his armor bearer right behind him. The Philistines sped before Jonathan, and his armor bearer followed and killed behind him. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area of about half an acre. Then panic struck the whole army, those to camp of the field, and those in the outpost and the raiding parties, and the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah in Benjamin saw the armies melting away in all directions. Then Saul said to the men who were with him, Muster the forces and see who has left us. So when they did, it was Jonathan and his armor bearer who were not there. Saul said to Ezra, Bring the ark of the God. Then at that time it was with the Israelites. Where Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult of the Philistines camp increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, Withdraw your hands. Then Saul and all his men assembled and went to battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking on other with their sword. Those Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up to them on their camp went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. When all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So that the Lord rescued Israel that day, and the battle moved on beyond Beth Aven. Now the men of Israel went in distress that day, because Saul had bound these people under the oath, saying, Cursed be any man who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself on enemies. So none of the troops tasted food. The entire army entered the woods, and there was honey on the ground. When they went into the woods, they saw the honey oozing out. Yet no one put his hand to his mouth, because they feared that his father had bound the people with the oath. So he reached out an end of the staff that was his hand and dipped it into the honeycomb. He raised his hand to his mouth, and his eyes brightened. Then one of the soldiers told him, Your father bound the army under the strike oath, saying, Cursed be any man who eats food today. That is why the men are faint. Jonathan said, My father has made trouble for the country. See how my eyes brightened when I tasted a little of this honey. How much better would I have been if the man had eaten today some of the plunder they took from their enemies. Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have been even greater? That day, after the Israelites had struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Aizon, they were exhausted. They pouched the plunder and taking sheep, cattle, and cows, they butchered them on the ground and ate them, together with the blood. Then someone said to Saul, Look, the men are sinning against the Lord by eating meat that has blood in it. You have broken faith, he said. Roll a large stone over here at once. Then he said, Go out among the men and tell them, Each of you bring me your cattle and sheep, and slaughter them here and eat them. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with blood still in it. So everyone brought his ox that night and slaughtered it there. Then Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first time he had done this. Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night and plunder them till dawn. and let us not leave on them alive. Do whatever seems best to you. They replied, but the priest said, let us inquire of God here. So Saul asked God, shall I go down after the Philistines? Will you give them into Israel's hands? But God did not answer him that day. Saul therefore said, come here, all you who are leaders of the army, and let us find out what sins has been committed today. As surely as the Lord who rescues Israel lives, even if it lies with my son Jonathan, he must die. But not one of the men said a word. Saul then said to all the Israelites, you stand over them. I and Jonathan, my son, will stand over here. Do what seems best to you. The man replied, then Saul prayed to the Lord, the God of Israel, give me the right answer. And Jonathan and Saul were taken by lot, and the men were cleared. Saul said, cast the lot between me and Jonathan my son, and Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what you have done. So Jonathan told him, I merely tasted a little honey with the end of my staff, and now must I die? Saul said, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you do not die, Jonathan. But the man said to Saul, shouldn't Jonathan die, he who has brought about this great deliverance in Israel? Never, as surely as the Lord lives, not a hair of his head will fall on the ground. But he did this today with God's help. So the man rescued Jonathan, and he was not put to death. Then Saul stopped pursuing the Philistines, and they withdrew to their own land. After Saul had assumed rule over Israel, he fought against their enemies on every side. Moab, the Amorites, Edom, and the king of Joab, and the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment on them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of those who had plundered them. Saul's sons were Jonathan, Isbeth, and Bathsheba, and the name of his older daughter was Merab, and that of a younger was Michal. His wife's name was Ahimona, daughter of Amos. The name of the commander of Saul's army was Abner, son of Ner, and Ner was Saul's uncle. Saul's father Kish and Abner's father Ner were sons of Abiel. All the days of Saul that were bitter war with the Philistines, and whenever Saul saw a mighty or brave man, he took him into his service. 15. Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel, so listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel, that when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. So Saul summoned the men and mustered them at Talmud, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men from Judah. Saul went to the city of Amalek and set an ambush in the ravine. Then he said to Kenneth, go away, leave the Amalekites so that I do not destroy you along with them. For you showed kindness to all the Israelites when they came out to Egypt. So the Canaanites moved away from the Amalekites. Then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Hebron to Shehur, to the east of Egypt. He took Og, king of Amalek alive, and all his people he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and his army spared Og and the beasts of the sheep and cattle and the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel. I am grieved that I have made Saul king, because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instructions. Samuel was troubled, and he cried out to the Lord all the night. Early in the morning, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul, and he was told, Saul has gone to Carmel. There he has set up a monument in his own honor and has turned the gun on the town of Gilgal. When Samuel reached him, Saul said, "The Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instruction." But Samuel said, "What then is this bleating of sheep in my ears? What is the lowing of the cattle that I hear?" Saul answered, "The soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we totally destroyed the rest." "Stop," Samuel said to Saul. "Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night." "Tell me," Saul said. Samuel said, "Although you were only small in your own eyes, did you not become an head of the tribe of Israel? The Lord anointed the king over Israel, and he set on the mission, saying, Go and completely destroy those wicked people and Amalekites. Make war on them until you have wiped them out. Why did you not obey the Lord? Why did you pounce on the plunder and do evil in the eyes of the Lord?" "But I did obey the Lord," Saul said. "I went on the mission the Lord assigned me. I completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag their king. The soldiers took sheep and cattle from the plunder, the best of what was devoted to your God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal." But Samuel replied, "Does the Lord delight in burnt offering and sacrifice as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed it is better than the fat of the rams. But rebellion is like the sin of divination, and ornament like the evil of the idiocy. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." Then Saul said to Samuel, "I have sinned. I violated the Lord's command and your instructions. I was afraid of the people, and so I gave in to them. Now I beg you, forgive my sin and come back with me, so that I may worship the Lord." But Samuel said to him, "I will not go back with you. You have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you as king over Israel." As Samuel told to leave, Saul caught hold of him and his robe, and it tore. Samuel said to him, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to one of your neighbors, to one better than you, who is the glory of the Lord. Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he is not a man, that he should change his mind." Saul replied, "I have sinned, but please honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel. Come back with me, so that I may worship the Lord your God." So Samuel went back with Saul, and Saul worshipped the Lord. Then Samuel said, "Bring me Agag, king of Amalek." Agag came in confidently, thinking, "Surely the bitterness of the dead is past." But Samuel said, "As your sword has made a woman childless, so will your mother be childless among women." And Samuel put Agag to death before the Lord at Gilgal. And then Samuel left for Ramah, but Saul went off to his home in Gibeah of Saul. Until the day Samuel died, he did not go to see Saul again. Though Samuel mourned for him, and the Lord was grieved that he had made Saul king over Israel.